I'm Damon Oscarson. I'm the operations manager here at LIC Beer Project here in Long Island City, New York.
And I'm Thomas DesRochers, sales manager here at LIC.
Hey all, Amanda here, and welcome to episode 90 of Great Beer Adventure. We are back in New York, hitting up another amazing spot. I enjoyed a nice walk from Rockaway Brewing to LIC Beer Project. This is certainly not a place you would just stumble upon. From the outside, it looks like any other building, but when you get inside, let's jump right into the origin story.
This idea came about from Daniel Acosta, our head brewer. Daniel, a few years ago, wanted to open up a brewery, and I met him about 3.5 years ago, and it's sort of the brainchild of what he had in mind for opening a brewery and what we had in mind to bring a brewery here in New York City that sort of focuses on Belgian-inspired beers, mixed fermentation beers, farmhouse ales, and some other types of beers, because we felt like this city in this area is a little underserved, and having a local brewery that really focuses on those types of beer styles. With that, we've sort of evolved into making other types of beers, like we do a really good German Kolsch, and then we do a variety of hoppy beers, which seem to be taking off for us as well. But what we really wanted to do here was just create a space and create an experience with our beers and with our brewery that sort of transports people to a different place. We're in a pretty industrial area, so we have a lot of reclaimed wood here. We have about 100 oak barrels of filled with beer here. We have New York City's only coolship. So with New York City's only coolship, we are primarily doing spontaneously fermented beers in that coolship. They go into the beer goes into the coolship. It's inoculated by the wild yeast and bacteria in the atmosphere, and then we move that inoculated wort into oak barrels, where it will spend 6 months, a year, maybe longer, to develop very complex sour beers.
Not only did we decide to make Belgian ales and wild beers because it was underserved in the city, but we're selfish, and these are the types of beers that we like to drink. Complex, yeast-forward, naked beers, right? So clean saisons that the yeast is the predominant flavor is just something that we weren't really finding in the area. They're the beers that we like to make as home brewers, because we all kind of started in that realm, and the beers we like to drink. So we're making them for us first, and it spills off into the community, which is great.
A lot of our beers are kind of old school, European inspired. A lot of them farmhouse ales, wild ales. So we kind of wanted to give a little bit of that farmhouse kind of old school feel, but also mixed in with the industrial area that we're in. So the space is sort of designed for that.
Yeah, I've just heard Dan say this 100 times. He stumbled around in Belgium and in Europe a lot years ago when he first got inspired about beer. And he wanted to transform this place to make it feel like one of those little teeny spots that you just stumble off of an industrial area and walk into this beautiful, clean, small bar with world-class beers being poured. So he kind of wanted to emulate that with LIC. So you walk outside and there's a taxi yard next door. There's an auto shop. It's kind of dingy and smelly, and we don't really show that there's a brewery out here. We don't have a huge sign, and we don't have lights and outdoor seating or anything. So when you open that door and step in, it's like you're walking into a bar in Belgium. That's the idea.
Yeah, and it's sort of a destination. Even though we're in New York City and we're in Queens, we're still off the beaten path. So people still have to kind of trek to come here. Even from Manhattan, it's a little bit of a walk to get here. So that's why we wanted to kind of create that experience. Like, we don't have a TV set up or anything like that. So everything here is all about the beer. It's all about the atmosphere. It's all about the experience. It's all about the beer and having an experience with the beers.
Now, on to a couple of the beers they make.
Yeah, Art and Core, that's our flagship farmhouse ale. So it's very yeast forward. It's a very simple malt bill. Our yeast that we use on our farmhouse ales are mixed fermentation, so they have Saccharomyces as well as Brettanomyces strains in them. So you get super complex yeast, fruity esters on the beer, and the Brettanomyces adds a nice complexity to the beers too. We generally sit on them for a little bit so they add more complexity on them. And Dan likes to make beers that are super dry, super drinkable. So he really knows how to make the yeast really work and rip through the beers so that you don't have a lot of residual sugars on the beers, and they're easy to drink, and you want to drink 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. So they might even be a little higher in alcohol, but you really don't taste that alcohol, and you don't get full off of the beers.
Let's see. My favorite right now is probably Silent Vixen. It's a Bière de Garde inspired saison. So a Bière de Garde, if you're not familiar, is a fall saison. So back in the day, they would brew the beer in the summertime and would drink it when it got cold outside. So it's usually a higher alcohol beer with a darker malt bill, oftentimes lagered to clean it up. And that's exactly what we did. Brewed the beer, it's 7.5%, aged it on orange rinds, so it has like a nice orange kind of fruity ester to it, and lagered it for a month, so it's just very clean, nice and dry. There's zero residual sugar in the beer. Just I don't know, it's a great representation of, I think, what our inspired Bière de Garde is. It might not be exactly like it is back in Belgium, but it's kind of our twist, which I love.
Yeah, I mean, most of our beers are our own interpretations of those old school styles for sure. And then we have a variety of hoppy beers that we've been really getting into, and really I think we're doing a good job at experimenting with a lot of variety of hops. We try to use a lot of the new school Mosaic and Citra and the sexy hops, but also combine them with West Coast old school hops like your Centennials and your Cascades. So they're not just complete fruit bombs; they also have a little bit of piney dankness to them. And one of my favorites, and basically our mainstay IPA, is Higher Burnin'. And Higher Burn is a pretty popular IPA that we usually have on tap all the time, and that's made with Belma, Eldorado, and Mosaic, and so it's got a lot of that fruit-forward, fruity berry kind of flavors in it, but still it's got some dankness to it, and it's an easy drinking sort of, New England hazy IPA, but also with a little bit of West Coast feel to it.
Let's find out a bit more about where you can find LIC Beer Project beers.
We self-distribute in New York City, so we send our beers to a lot of bars and restaurants in New York City, and we are with a distributor all the way up to Albany, and then you can get it all the way out on Long Island. And we've got plans to expand to the rest of New York. We're also planning on we've done a little bit of sending some beer to Philly. I think we're going to continue to do that, and maybe start sending some beer to Boston sometime soon, because we're going to be up at Extreme Beer Fest next month, so we're going to go from there. We've been canning our beers quite a bit, so that's been pretty good. So people can certainly come. We usually exclusively sell the beers here in the can. So once a month we usually do a canning run of usually IPAs or pale ales or double IPAs, and so they've been pretty well received, which is cool. And then we have a bottling program too. I mean, all our aged sour beers, we've been starting to bottle them. We've been really sitting on them for a long time, so we hadn't come out with them right away. A couple months ago, we came out with our first spontaneous beer. It was basically one of the first beers Dan and I brewed in the coolship. It got 2 years ago, so right when we opened, or right before we opened, and it spent over a year in oak and about maybe 8 months in the bottle. So it's super complex and really, really cool. A nice oaky kind of sour beer. It's a very cool beer. So we're going to have more and more of these beers coming out in the bottle. And again, we don't plan on sending them to other places, really. It's just you got to come in here and buy the beers and enjoy them that way. And we do Berliner Weisses too. We've been doing some fruited Berliner Weiss series of beers that have been oak fermented, and they've turned out really good. So we're pretty happy about those.
And as always, we certainly must know Thomas and Damon's first beer memories.
I guess around the dinner table, I guess, as like a 7 or 8 year old. My dad had one, and I think I snagged it, and I didn't even think I asked, and I took a big gulp, and it was the worst thing I've ever had. So I'm sure it's kind of how it goes.
Nice. I think one is I kind of what got me into craft beer is drinking a lot of the Belgian beers that were imported here, the Trappist beers, the monastic beers. Definitely like Chimay Red was probably. I have distinct memories of drinking that in New York City like 8 years ago and being blown away, where I was drinking cocktails before that, and then it was like, my God, this is beer, and drinking that, and certainly having memories of drinking that, knowing not realizing that I probably shouldn't have 5 of them, But yeah, Chimay Red is probably my first foray into what really good beer was like, at least back then,
So my first wake-up call, not childhood memory, I guess would be Sierra Nevada. So going to school at Chico State up in Northern California is where Sierra Nevada's from. It's where I fell in love with their pale ale and the torpedo. So that was where it was a complete wake-up call of something I've never had before. And now look at them. They're number 2 in the country and all over.
Big thank you to the Gens at LIC Beer Project for letting me come in unannounced and ask them a few questions. Thank you to you all for listening in as I travel around New York and continue on this fabulous adventure. Don't forget to head over to greatbeeradventure.com/podcast to learn more about this adventure and all of the rest. Until next time, get out there and try something new. Chat soon, friends. If you all, our fabulous co-adventurers, would like to support the show, check out our Patreon page. For less than the cost of a beer, you can show us some love. Go to greatbeeradventure.com/support. If you want to see even more from our adventures, follow us on Instagram @GreatBeerAdventure. And be sure to subscribe to the show. That way, you won't miss a thing. Great Beer Adventure is part of the Great Pint Society. Cheers.